In a span of about 4 hours, the soap opera slash clown show, which is the House Republican Conference, took more twists and turns than an entire season of Game of Thrones, and it's entirely possible that by the time you see this video, the story may have changed dramatically again. So brace yourselves for the whiplash. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Okay, so I was in the process of uploading a video on this topic when the story radically changed in such a way as to render the entire previous video completely ridiculous. So I had to cancel it, and we are starting over. And again, it's entirely possible that by the time you see this, it will have changed once again. But we're going to cover this very sordid tale, which just transpired today over a span of like 4 hours from start to finish. And we're going to play multiple clips because it is intriguing. But to give you a sense of where we started this morning, I want you to see this clip from CNN and remember it, because where we end is radically different.
All right, we have big breaking news from Capitol Hill on a vote that we now just learned will not happen today. CNN's Lauren Fox with the very latest on Capitol Hill. Jim Jordan backing off, Lauren. Where do things stand?
Yeah, we expect in this private conference meeting, according to multiple sources that me and our CNN colleagues have been talking with, that Jim Jordan is going to lean towards supporting that resolution to empower Patrick McHenry until January rather than running again today on the floor for House Speaker. There's some thinking behind this. First, Jim Jordan is not expected to drop his bid for the speakership. Instead, this would give Jordan more time to try to shore up support. Does that work over the course of the next several months? It's extremely unclear. There are a number of opponents to Jim Jordan who say that they are not going to back him, and it's not clear that more time is really going to change
their minds. Okay, so there you get the drift, okay? As of this morning, it wasn't looking good for Jim Jordan. So Manu Raju, also from CNN, reported, multiple Republican sources say that Jordan is bleeding votes and is poised to lose even more Republicans if he goes through with a third ballot today. One Republican member who opposes Jordan says there are about 30 Republican no votes, okay? So again, today, there was supposed to be a third attempt by Jim Jordan at noon, a third bite at the apple. But as we've discussed in previous videos, it was increasingly likely that he was going to lose more votes through attrition with each subsequent ballot measure. So he lost more votes in round 2 than he did in round 1. He was expected to lose more in round 3 than he did in round 2, and so on and so forth. So this idea was, okay, what we would do is empower. We would work bipartisanly with Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, has been pitching this idea for several days. So Patrick McHenry is the short gentleman with the bow tie who's standing behind the gavel. He's the Speaker pro temp, which is largely a powerless position, okay? The idea is, okay, until we can appoint a new formal speaker, we will empower Patrick McHenry with certain abilities. That way we can address the looming government shutdown. Since the continuing resolution is set to expire in just a few weeks, we could potentially address funding for Ukraine and Israel, like the essential key functions. That was the idea. And again, Jordan wasn't going to withdraw from the race. It was just going to try to buy him more time to get the supports he needs, or the support he needs. Now, Seth MacFarlane talked about how he spoke with Ken Buck, that Republican congressman who very much intrigues me. I asked what Representative Jim Jordan could do to change his mind and vote. Buck had no suggestion. These 22 defections could become 30 to 40 defections. Again, really not good. Now, apparently, during this closed-door session, it got really heated, again, in the hours before they were supposed to have this vote. This is former Speaker Kevin McCarthy talking about a confrontation he had with Matt Gaetz in this closed-door session.
Yeah, until we got there. Specifically what happened with Matt Gaetz? Did you yell at him? No. I was at the mic, I was speaking, and Matt Gaetz tried to interrupt, and so I told him to sit down, and he sat down.
What's your view?
No, I told him to sit down. I think the entire conference screamed at him. People are, listen, the whole country, I think, would scream at Matt Gaetz right now. Remember, it was a crazy eights led by Matt Gaetz and every single Democrat that put us into this situation.
So, of course, Kevin McCarthy can't help but blame Democrats, even though it was his fault, his weakness, his ineptitude as a leader to get his caucus under control. But the Crazy Eight, led by Matt Gaetz, that's actually beautiful poetry. So, yeah, it was reported that McCarthy and Gaetz nearly came to blows, and apparently there was a lot of tension going on in this closed-door session. Now, again, what the idea was, okay, Jordan's like, listen, I'm not gonna end my attempt to get the speakership. I'm just gonna hold off for a bit. I'm gonna try to whip more votes, and in the meantime, we'll try to get some sort of basic functioning of government done, which is hilarious, that idea coming from any Republican, given that they are seemingly acutely allergic to the idea of the government even basically functioning. Now, in response to this proposal of empowering Patrick McHenry, this is what Matt Gaetz had to say.
What do you think about this resolution to empower McHenry?
I think that I'm against Speaker Light. I'm against Bud Light. I believe it is a constitutional desecration to not elect a Speaker of the House. We need to stay here until we elect a Speaker. And if someone can't get the votes, we need to go on to the next person. But twisting and torturing the Constitution to empower a temporary speaker is having a Speaker Light that is not constitutionally contemplated, is deeply infirm, and I will do everything possible to stop it.
So I guess that's a no, right, to supporting the empowerment of Patrick McHenry. Now, I will note his phrasing. It's very funny that Matt Gaetz opposes torturing and twisting the Constitution, which seems to be the Republican MO. As a matter of fact, it was the Republican MO long before today. Matt Gaetz supported, just like Jim Jordan, twisting and torturing the Constitution so as to empower Vice President Mike Pence to basically just overturn the election unilaterally. We want to twist the Constitution so that apparently to pretend like the founding fathers intended for one guy to be able to go, no, I don't like the results of this election, and try to make Donald Trump an unelected dictator for a second term. So he's okay twisting and turning the Constitution here, but just briefly empowering the Speaker pro temp to try to get some basic governance done, that's a bridge too far. Very absurd, very hypocritical. Then you have Lauren Boebert saying, I will not sit back and watch a complete betrayal of the GOP base with this plan that's being discussed. I ran because I was sick and tired of politicians coming up here and cutting deals and releasing holier-than-thou statements about why we just had to accept it. So apparently she was a firm no, too. Okay? That leads us to Marjorie Taylor Greene. We're going to play two clips from her. This is what she had to say at the prospect, again, of Jim Jordan putting his speakership on pause and then briefly empowering Patrick McHenry.
I do not support this plan. Republican voters worked too hard to give us the majority for us to enter some sort of temporary speakership. Our conference has a responsibility to the American people, to our districts, to work together and unify. And this conference is absolutely broken. And the reason why we're broken is because Republicans worked with Democrats and put us here.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene openly admitting that the Republican conference is broken. I do think it's ironic that she appeals to their civic duty to their constituents, given that Republicans have historically not really done anything for the benefit of their constituents. They're too busy litigating meaningless culture war issues, which don't produce a material benefit for any Republican voter. But I digress. This is another clip, basically a continuation of the first.
And this conference is broken because Republicans worked with Democrats and put us here. So what's required for serious people that want to do their job is people need to put their egos down. Those that put us in this position need to ask forgiveness. Forgiveness needs to be given. People need to be humble, and we need to unite behind a speaker. And that's what our conference needs to do now. Our country needs us to do this.
When you say,
and I do not think this is a plan for us to get there.
So again, I just note the irony of Marjorie Taylor Greene, a MAGA Republican, talking about how serious people who want to take their jobs seriously and do their jobs, the work of the people, of governing, again, that's just completely antithetical to what the Republican Party has become. And they've demonstrated it time and time again. We don't even need to look past the previous month. Republicans in the past 4 weeks have demonstrated conclusively that they are the objectively inferior and stupider party that are least capable of governing. Even if you're like a principled conservative, the Republicans do not deserve your vote, because even if, and that's a big if, they share your principles, they're too stupid, incompetent, and dysfunctional to actively legislate and govern. They don't have the ability for it. They don't have the talent for it. So you shouldn't reward them with your vote. And if you know anybody who's a conservative, I would recommend that you make that argument to them as well. So yeah, look, okay, it seems relatively straightforward, okay? Jim Jordan's going to get a bite at the apple. He chooses not to because it looks bad for him. He wants to buy himself some time. He thinks that maybe we need to reopen Congress, so he'll back this measure to back Patrick McHenry. MAGA is infuriated. Matt Gaetz is infuriated. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and many in between. This isn't going to work. So then what happens? Well, they walk it all back.
So I'll just say this: we made the pitch to members on the resolution as a way to lower the temperature and get back to work. We decided that wasn't where we're going to go. I'm still running for speaker, and I plan to go to the floor and get the votes and win this race. But I want to go talk with a few of my colleagues. Particularly, I want to talk with the 20 individuals who voted against me so that we can move forward and begin to work for the American people.
Again, the phrasing, I don't know if he did this on purpose or not. I suspect not, because he's a very stupid man. But notice what he says. You know, we pitched this resolution as an idea of cooling the temperature, lowering the temperature, and getting back to work. But then we decided that's not the way that we were going to go. So he just openly admitted. You don't even have to read into it. He said the words. I pitched the idea, let's calm down and let's get back to work. And they said, no, that's just not what Republicans do. Folks, this is a colossal indictment. Now, I don't know if they're going to have the vote again today. It seems like it would be a colossal waste of time. But apparently they're just not going to do anything today at the time of this recording. They're not going to propose this bipartisan solution, the stopgap measure, which, by the way, it's not like Democrats would be happy about it. Patrick McHenry is also the guy who, the moment he became Speaker pro tem, kicked Nancy Pelosi out of her office. Like, he's a very spiteful, pathetic person. But Democrats are just willing to, they're willing to even back that on a temporary basis just to get the House open. Republicans can't even agree to do that, even though it would be their guy. Patrick McHenry is their guy. He's a Republican. So pathetic. They are truly a contrarian, dysfunctional party. I would imagine it may be the case that had a Republican pitched this idea first, that they would all get behind it. Like, okay, at least he's our guy, and it would get the business of government back open. But it may very well have been because Hakeem Jeffries publicly endorsed the idea or seemingly pitched the idea. Maybe that was what turned them off. No, we can't give Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats, the socialist, Marxist, commie Democrats, and Joe Biden a win. It's so pathetic. And again, I say, as we head into an election year, we don't even need to look. We don't have to look at the past 6 months or 2 years or 7 or 8 years with the Republican Party under Donald Trump. We need only look at the past 7 or 8 days, maybe 4 weeks top. Everything that the Republican Party has demonstrated in the past 4 weeks has made them objectively not a viable option if you're a serious person wanting government to do serious things. Liberal, conservative, progressive, regressive, whatever. They've disqualified themselves. They're not a serious governing party. There's no telling what the soap opera / clown show will unveil tomorrow. But again, brace yourselves, because I expect more twists and turns are coming.